Thanks, listeners, for joining us. Elko Live today is our update in Elko County news, and we're very pleased to have a special guest today to talk about one of the most important departments of Elko County government. That is the Elko County Assessor's Office. And Janet Iribarne is our guest today. She is our elected official Elko County Assessor. Janet, thank you so much for taking time out today.
Oh, hey, Lori. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We have a lot of important things to talk about regarding our citizens, business owners, their property taxes, some changes or some things to be aware of. I thought we would first start just by reminding listeners of what the position of Elko County Assessor is. It's something that you came up in and had a lot of training, a lot of background in before you were elected to this position.
Correct, Lori. I was very fortunate to begin my career in the Elko County Assessor's Office as a records clerk. And I worked my way up into personal property appraisal and then eventually real property appraisal and into the county assessor's seat. And I love this county, so I'm very fortunate to represent the people of Elko County.
And Janet, you had such a wonderful mentor. It's always nice to remember people who came before us and really did the heavy lifting and all that hard work. And we think about Joe Aguero often, don't we?
Truly, yes. Joe was a wonderful person, and has left his legacy here in Elko County for sure.
Yeah. So you were mentored under Joe, and it's important for people to remember that because part of a very important part of the assessor's office, right, is literally record keeping and history.
Correct, yes. The main priority of the Elko County Assessor, or all assessors in the state of Nevada, is to discover, value, and list the property. So that's what we set out to do, and we do so in a fair and equitable way.
We have a lot of conversations in our county about how much of our land is public land, and so it's excluded from taxation other than the federal government's scheduled payment in lieu of taxes that comes to the county. But does that leave a significant amount of property that is actually privately owned, Janet?
Well, yeah, we do have a lot of federally owned property, and the assessor still discovers, values, and lists those properties as well. We probably spend a lot more focus on the taxable property that actually generates revenue. So we are consistently fair and equitable amongst those as well, mostly. But yeah, we also are, maintaining those federal lands as well. We have over 17,000 square miles of land here in Elko County, one of the largest counties in the nation.
Wow, that is impressive. I bet that other clerks talk to you about that, or assessors talk to you about that. Correct. When you travel around the state and the country. So yeah, that is really an interesting inventory. And so of our local properties, do you keep count, or what's the best way that we tabulate? What's our assessed valuation, I guess is the right term, right?
Oh, what is our assessed valuation currently in the whole county? Oh, it's a lot. We're almost at $2 billion, I believe, real estate and personal property together. And then the state of Nevada actually assesses and discovers and maintains the value for our utility companies, which is a large portion of the revenue as well, but something that the county assessor doesn't maintain. And so that valuation isn't included in my total overall that I just gave you, the $2 billion. Just about close to that is where we're at right now.
Wow, that explains a lot, because that's the same way I think gas taxes are formulated. It goes to the state before we get that trickle down here.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, a lot of road miles. And so what an interesting concept, though, again, of keeping track of. And what we want to talk about today is obviously our local property taxes, Janet, and people are always, concerned about how much they pay and where it goes. And you want to make people aware of our both residential and commercial tax levels, right?
Yeah, correct. Obviously everyone has to pay taxes, and you may not actually write the check out to the county treasurer, but your landlord is doing that for you. So it affects us all. And so, yeah, we want to be astute on all of our options out there for us to get the best value, I suppose, for your tax, most bang for your buck in your taxes.
Mm-hmm. And we do know, just from our various conversations ongoing with the city government derives about 60% of their government funding, if you will, the money that they use for their programs and emergency services from sales taxes. So would you make that comparison for the county, or is there? Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure about the percentages with the county, but that makes sense. Although I have to say, where sales tax may be a little more volatile, property taxes have that stability that, that assures, the financial end of the revenue that's generated from taxes actually can stand on. That's a good base for them.
And that will tie into one of our discussions today, as we're going to talk about caps and what that does to suppress government spending for those who are concerned. I did want to mention, too, you mentioned utilities, and Janet, mining also pays quite a bit of tax.
Yes, and mining the same thing. It goes through the state, and then it kind of trickles over to us. We do bill some mining, but the net proceeds is what we're talking. The gains from the ore that was pulled out of the ground, the net proceeds from that comes through the state to the county, not through the assessor's office.
And too bad for us, because it would sure be nice if I guess Elko County, in all fairness, we have our neighbors in Eureka and Lander County. They are very rich in net proceeds taxes, right?
Yeah, from what I understand, yes.
Yes.
From what the state bulletins have reported, yes.
Millions upon millions in the bank, which is good for those small communities, because when they talk about it, it's to shore up their future. They have very small populations. Majority of mining folks live in nearby larger counties, such as Elko County. So that's how we kind of got off on that subject. But so you wanted to make sure that people are aware of an opportunity to apply for and get back a 3% cap. Should we talk about the cap now, would you say? Would that be helpful? Or just the residential versus commercial property taxes?
Lori, my primary goal today is to be here with you and to talk about this cap. It is so important. And we are in 19 years. The property taxes have been capped since 2005, actually. And so this is not a new thing. However, the majority of the people don't know about this. And, we've, as assessors, we have to discover this property that is primary ownership owned. So if you are the owner-occupied primary resident, you may be eligible for a lower cap, which means your property tax bill that you were sent last year by the treasurer cannot go up more than 3% if this is your primary residence. Now, all property is capped in the state of Nevada at 8% or an alternative, the 10-year rolling average of the CPI. But so we have been at the 8% for the last couple years, and so people are really seeing the effects, the difference between being capped at 8% versus being capped at 3%. And however, we send out a letter or a form for you to fill out when you buy your property. We don't get them back, or they're being lost in the mail, they're being sent to the wrong mailing address, because when you filled out your paperwork, you may have lived at a different location. When your deed was recorded, sometimes the title company is putting on the old mailing address, so you're not getting your mail, or something has happened that you did not get this form. And so I want to get out there, and I want everyone to make sure that they can check to see if they have the low cap. The 3% low cap is what we're calling it. It's a cap on your tax bill from the previous year. So it really doesn't have anything to do with value. What the assessor's goal here is to discover those properties that are primary residences, list them for the treasurer so she can bill her tax roll properly by giving the people that live in the homes, that's your owner-occupied home, a 3% cap. And I know that's a lot of words, and it's hard to explain. And I think some people have thought over the years, it sounds like a scam. I'm not going to tell the assessor anything. And so, they are not benefiting now, because it can be from $50, actually, $18, $19, $20. But I've given out refunds this year up to $400 to $500, depending on your home. So I want you to get out there and look at our website on the elkocountynv.net. If you go to records, it's really easy to see when you open up that webpage up at the top. You'll see records. Click that records. Go down to where it says assessor and click property sales and records. And if you look in there, there's also a link in there to help you, guide you through the website if you need help doing that. But if you go to the website and type in your name, your address, your parcel number, it doesn't matter. It should come up. You can look in there. Go to the tax collection side, where that's more of the treasurer side, but that's where you'll see whether you're getting the low cap or the high cap. And if you're getting the high cap and this is your primary residence, you need to come in and you need to talk to me or someone in my office and get that set to the low cap.
And it's important to know everything that Janet just explained. Again, your primary residential property, meaning you're not a landlord. This isn't a property that you rent out, right? There's a difference. That's why the distinction.
There is a distinction. And then, Lori, however, on the flip side of that, you own a rental. And if you are renting that rental out under the HUD rental rate, you can also qualify for the 3% low cap. But every year, by statute, we have to send out the rental affidavit. So all our landlords are getting a rental affidavit every single year. It should come in the mail. If you're not getting that, you need to reach out to the office again and let us know where we need to mail this affidavit to you. And so you can fill that out. If you have a fourplex and half of your rentals are under the cap, the HUD rate, and they can qualify for the low cap, and the other is at the high cap, we'll adjust the valuation calculation to give you that benefit. So that's kind of another, landlords, they don't always qualify for it, but they can.
And that's important to know. That's a really good distinction because, again, that's money you could put into fixing a broken water heater or repairing some stairs or, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, definitely. Well, Janet, that's really important information. Again, the difference between the 3% and the 8% property tax cap. And that's just something that's developed over the last, I forgot the timeline you gave us, the last few months or a couple of years?
Yeah, since 2005. So
Okay.
we're working on 18 years, 19 years now, I guess, is we've been sending out the forms and getting that out to the public so they can return them back. Most people, if you've lived in your home for any amount of time, you've probably filled out the form and you are at the 3%, but it doesn't hurt to go out there and look just to verify to make sure you are. So if you can go out to the website, check that out, call the office. We'd be more than happy to go out there and check for you. Make sure you're getting that 3% cap.
Wow. So that, if I'm understanding correctly, could that be 18 years worth? I mean,
Right.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Now, the cap, and it hasn't always come into effect on your taxes because our values weren't going up over that 3% for many, many years. And then we have the alternative cap, which at some points in our time has been as low as 3.6%. So it wasn't a big difference between the two. But for the last 3 years, I believe it's been 8%. So that alternative cap being 8% and then the owner-occupied cap being 3%, that's a big difference. And then if your home has a higher value, that means that it's a bigger tax dollar difference that you're seeing. So,
it's worth it.
Right now we have, we've been all year long been trying to get the word out there, and we have been taking in a lot more forms this year with the help of the county commission. We've been to the county commission meetings. I'm going to talk to the realtors today, and hopefully that they can help get the word out. You're helping the assessor, but really you're helping the taxpayers. You're helping your community members because we're just trying to help you get this 3% lower so you can, times are hard right now. The inflation is hard on all of us. So if you have that 3%, then, on the other side of it, though, the county is still trying to generate revenue. So it's kind of also hard on that end. But yeah, the difference between what we would have billed you if without the cap is called the abatement. So that's the difference between what you get, what you pay, and what you would have paid without the cap is the difference. It's the abatement. And you hear that a lot when you talk to local governments nowadays.
And so it does beg the question, who does set that 8%? Who decides when it triggers, right?
Right, yeah. State of Nevada, they do that calculation for us, but it's based on the Consumer Price Index, CPI, and a 10-year average. So it seems like we were at 3.6 not that long ago, so we must have had some really low years on that end, and now it's weighing heavier on the 8% side. So we're giving, that's all about inflation there. So it's 8%. And we saw that last year, the year before, and I'm suspecting that we'll see it this coming year as well.
All right. So whether or not you're concerned about an additional $20 or $40, you should certainly think about $400 and then multiply that by a number of years.
That is correct, yes. Right now we are going back, and we're still in the 23-24 tax year. So up until June 30th, our county treasurer will, and I've been working in tandem with Cheryl Paul, our county treasurer. She's wonderful, and so is her staff. And we have been working in tandem with them, where we get a tax cap claim form that is returned to our office, and the person that owned that property lived in that home at July 1, 2023. We are going back and fixing the 23-24 tax year because it's still open. She has that ability to do that. And so we have been doing refunds to some of our taxpayers that were due that, and then they're getting that cap is being reset. So next year their bill won't go up, but the 3% over what the bill was this year, because all our values have gone up over 3%.
Wow. And is there a deadline, by the way, on this?
Well, June 15th is the deadline. That's why I really wanted to get out here today. And thank you for taking me.
Of course.
Because it's really super important that I reach out and try to shout from all the rooftops. And hopefully you may not have bought a home in the last 3 years or something, but maybe your kids have, and maybe your parents have, or your brother or something. Go out and check your records, and I encourage everyone to check the records for your own personal your properties that you own. Make sure that the calculations seem correct, and that the buildings that are on those parcels are still there, and that sounds like a reasonable rate. We have a really good website that's new, so maybe I can segue into that, Lori, if I may.
That'd be perfect. Yes.
Yeah, we have a new website look. Again, if you aren't comfortable with it, we're more than happy to sit down with you and go over it. And we have a few how-to spreadsheets out there, or workbooks out there, so you can follow along if that's what you want. But the website has almost all the information that we have that was available. The size of the buildings on your properties, the extras, the concrete flat work, any garages, any porches. That information's on there, and that's what you're getting taxed on. So it's beneficial for you to go out there and look, and just see what the county has anyway out there, and then check out your own property or your parents. Make sure everybody's being accurately taxed. And if you have a question or you see something that looks odd, obviously call us. Start with the phone call, or assessor at elkocountymv.net is our email address. If you feel more comfortable emailing, we are more than willing and more than happy to look that over with you and go over the tax, your valuation and what you're being taxed on.
Janet Iribarne is our guest today, and Janet is the Elko County Assessor, and of course that a very significant reminder of those property tax caps, and that it could mean money returned to you, but certainly a reduction in your property tax in the future as inflation is pressing upon all of us, and that's why this rate is rising. And she and her staff and the entire county community want to make sure that we're aware of this. New website at elkocountynv.net?
That's correct.
Okay.
Go to records.
All right, go to records, and then you'll find that. Well, Janet, thank you. And obviously we can dip back in if we overlooked anything on this particular topic. But Yeah, we want to make sure, too, that people are aware there are some special incentives or programs for veterans and for widows in particular.
Yeah, Lori, yes. Veterans, widows, surviving spouses, the better term, I suppose, is you are eligible. For a surviving spouse, bring in your death certificate for your spouse, and we'll get you set up as easily as pie. It's super easy. You can use if you don't own a home, you can use the valuation on your vehicle. You can use it through DMV. So, and then of course our veterans, and we are so thankful for their service. I'm sure you are as well. And they also have an exemption for them. It's called a personal exemption. So it moves around with you around the state. If you were to move from Elko, you could use it in another county. And of course, you can use it at DMV. You can use it on your property, your real estate, or your personal property. And disabled veterans, that amount, you have to be 60% disabled or more. But that is a real tax savings, and thank goodness, because those folks deserve that exemption and being able to stay in their homes. And it can be up over $1,000 a year, and also that compounds over the years. Additionally, the disabled veteran exemption is transferable to your spouse. So if you are to pass, your spouse will also will continue to get that exemption, which I believe is wonderful. I think our state legislature has done a really good job with our veterans and trying to give them the help that they may need. The surviving spouse and the veteran and disabled veteran, and also then there's a blind exemption. So if you're blind, you can reach out. It's all on the website, the information that you need to bring in, so you can sign up for that. But they all adjust accordingly to the consumer price index, also the inflation, so they increase over the years. So what may have been a $40 exemption is now probably an $80, which is about what a surviving spouse is, and that's about the lowest exemption.
All right. Well, that all adds up, and those are important considerations, as of which in the category of agriculture, right? That's still such a significant industry, and I know you wanted to make sure people are aware of those exemptions, too.
Right, Lori, of course. If you own 7+ acres in size and you are utilizing your ground for agricultural purposes and you are grossing more than $5,000 income a year, you are eligible for a deferred tax. It's a lien, but the rate is substantially lower for your land. It's a deferment on your land. It's not an exemption, but it does defer the tax for 7 years. So if you are an agricultural operator for more than 7 years, it really benefits you. But so that is out there as well. And also, if you lease to a qualified agricultural business, that you may be able to have that portion of your property determined as agricultural, and you can get some benefit from that. It's not a lot, and none of these really amount to a huge cost savings, but every little bit helps, and that's why I'm here. And primarily, the getting all of this information out. There's so much to talk about. I almost don't want to get too convoluted and too confusing, but
I think you're doing a really good job, Janet.
Thank you.
Janet Iribarne is our Elko County assessor, and anybody who is listening who does have questions, or if it's about your property tax or your benefits, if you have a concern about a possible fraudulent or even some scam activity, Janet and I may talk about that a little bit too. But your office is open, and you have a great staff, and I have to say it's actually kind of pleasant to visit the Elko County Courthouse. You're in the annex part, right?
That's correct.
Yes.
We are in the annex with the clerk.
Yes, so you just pop in those doors, take the elevator up if you want, or the stairs, get a good little workout.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's fascinating. And then your other departments that you can visit, as you mentioned, Cheryl Paul, who's the treasurer. We have Mike Smales, who's a recorder. Yeah, and it's all part of Elko County history. And if you're privileged enough to be a property owner, it's really satisfying to be involved in that stewardship of your property and make sure you're paying your correct assessments, right?
That's right, Lori.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, we appreciate your being here today to talk about this, Janet. And I was going to ask you about one thing, too, because I think everything's a process and people should understand. I was at a county meeting recently or watching it online, and one of the commissioners suggested, hey, and we'll talk with him later about it, but wanted to find out from you. He said, we might want to start looking at the resale taxation, right? When an older home, for example, if you live in a 100-year-old home in city limits or something, you're going to pay like the lowest tax rate because your property has depreciated, I understand. That commissioner suggested maybe it's time we start looking at resetting the clock so that when those properties sell. Is that something your office would be involved in, Janet?
Oh, perhaps. We're usually at the end, once the legislation has been written and needs to be put into place and start rolling, that's where our office comes in more than what's actually being written into the statute. There's a lot of, obviously it's hard to generate revenue for the governmental entities, the cities, the local government, I guess, if you will. And with the tax cap, it is hurting that ability for those entities, county, city of Elko, Carlin, Wells, West Wendover. We all, it's hard, we have to fight that inflation as well. Mm-hmm. And here, we have the tax cap, which is kind of offsetting that. And I know there's an economic term for that. It's not coming to me, and it's Economics 101, but, it's not helpful really to the county on that side of the spectrum where, our taxpayers have more freedoms, and hopefully they do go out and spend more and generate more sales tax revenue. I mean, that's where you hope that, you saving on your property taxes. But I think a lot of us here in Elko go out of town and spend our money. And that's, probably hurts the local entities, the local governments as well. But, so I know that there's been a lot of talk about resetting different aspects. Sounds like you're talking about resetting the depreciation rate. And you figure a 100-year-old home has been remodeled and has the modern conveniences. Now we could probably adjust the age, given on remodeling and over the deferred maintenance that's just occurred naturally over the course of the time. And then there's talk about resetting the cap upon sale of a property. There's been a lot of different or reset the abatement on the sale of the property. I think is more what there's a lot of ideas out there, and 2025 will be the legislative session, and there's always a lot of thoughts going through a lot of people's minds, and maybe some of those will make it to a workshop or a committee and will be discussed, and we'll see what happens. But it's always kind of interesting for the assessors of the state of Nevada, or probably everywhere. We kind of sit there and wait for the legislature to make their minds up and what they're going to do, and then we try to adapt and pivot to make that happen. And that's kind of what happened back in 2005 when they did the tax cap. Is we still value the properties the same. You still have a valuation based on replacement cost new, less depreciation, so that replacement cost new has gone up, and that's why people's values go up. Like you said, the 100-year home, it has 25% good, is what the 75% depreciated. But yet you're going to see a higher rise in your improvements because of the inflation, where a home that's still depreciating is still getting a little depreciation and not seeing that higher increase in their value.
Wow, it's so complicated.
It kind of is.
It is, but it's fascinating, and it really is important to understand, again, as you said, how government is funded, because we've seen when there are funding woes, it's very difficult, and it causes, hardship in departments and agencies. We know the county is struggling right now, meaning our commissioners are trying to decide, a justice complex. We've got to get folks out of the basement of that historic courthouse. That is not right, and something needs to be done about that immediately. So I know that's a topic right now. So some of these beautiful aging historic buildings, they may have a different use in the future, but they shouldn't be housing workers who are being made ill, by being there. So yeah, I'm glad. I mean, we know that we have an annex and some departments are in the new, but anybody who's in the basement of the courthouse right now, I think we should be worried.
I started in the dungeon.
Did you?
That was what we called it.
Yeah.
And the assessor's office was in the old courthouse when I first started. I predate that annex building. And but I didn't spend a lot of time there, but it was dark and damp, and I can't imagine what those workers are going through over there now.
Yeah, and when I first, the district attorney's office was housed in a leaking building across you remember, it's been torn down now. Yes. And when I first started, and I was visiting the police department when they moved to the old church there on College Avenue, that was a building that had mold and problems. So
right.
We need to make these things priorities, have safe working environments, because that reflects all of us. So
it does. Yeah, it does. And it is a yin-yang situation, I guess, if you will, because the taxpayers generate that opportunity for the government to provide you good roads and provide those services. Fire is so important for us here, we all contribute together to make that happen. And I sometimes I understand that you have the 3%, and you don't want to pay any more than you have to, of course, and we all need that at this time. But on the other side, we do see our local our governments struggling a little bit.
Yeah, definitely, as you mentioned. So, and we've been talking about too, and we'll have these conversations ongoing. Thank you, Janet, so much. I hope we got to everything. Oh, I did want to mention one thing. If anybody is concerned about, it seems as though elderly people can be preyed upon, and they may own a piece of property. It's their home's paid for, or they may start getting targeted mailings. There are some warning signs, some things that people can look out for, right?
Well, I just pay attention to your mail. I think that a lot of us get a lot of mail. I know I do. And I sometimes just go, I don't want to do this tonight. I don't have to look through this pile of mail. And, but there are, things in there you may want to pay attention to. If you ever have any questions, of course, myself, the assessor, and my staff, I know, which my staff is awesome and amazing, and I couldn't do this without them. And then, but the treasurer's office, I know Mike Smills in the recorder's office. Reach out to any of us. We will do what we can to help you with whatever information comes your way. I know that often I have people call me about they get letters in the mail, people wanting to sell their property, especially these that are in the very rural areas, and they get a letter and, I want to buy your property for this amount or that, call me and we can discuss that. We have a market value that we have on your property, something if you're considering selling, you may want to check with us first to see if you're in the ballpark.
All right. And then also, as you said, protect these interests. And I just wanted to emphasize as we're closing out today's program that the importance of electing local officials, people who are in these positions. Janet's just been talking with us for half an hour, but Janet, I'm assuming you're a native, but I think you've grown up here or been here a long time. Yeah.
Born and raised.
Yeah, born and raised. This community. You love the people and the community.
I do.
Yes, and you understand a lot of the different issues. And it's important when we consider all of these elected positions. I think in Elko County, we have a wonderful legacy and tradition of choosing people to represent us in these extremely important, responsible, valuable positions. We trust those that we elect to these positions. It's not a popularity contest or based on some wild political platforms, things that are going on, around the country. you're here, you're accountable, and we appreciate that, Janet. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's wonderfully said, Lori. It's very true. I don't think that what your political voice is, or when it comes down to it, we're all on the same team here at Elko County, and we work with everyone, and we're all in this together. I think we all really feel that way.
Thank you, Janet. Anyone who has questions, needs more information, please reach out to our Elko County Assessor, Janet Iribarne, and she's at the Elko County Assessor's office, right? And
correct. Yep. 775-738-5217. Option number 2, please, and that'll get you right to real property appraisal and get you to the right person that you need.
Thank you, Janet.
Okay.
Thank you, listeners, for joining us for Elko Live today.
Thank you, Lori.